Hello, this is Mike Van Meter. Welcome to the Recovery is Possible podcast. I want to thank you for joining me, and you can reach us at our Facebook site, which is also called Recovery is Possible, or our website, which is vanmeterwellnesssolutions.com. This podcast exists to educate the public about addiction, remove the stigma associated with addiction, and offer help and support to those suffering from addiction. And so today we are going to be talking about one of my old police departments, I should say the police department that I was in before I became an FBI agent, and that's the Metropolitan Police Department, and what it was like and how it affected our guest, Deborah Wolf. And she has a book out called Center Mass, and she's going to talk to us about that and her experiences back in the days in the D.C. Police Department, back when it was the Wild West. It was kind of like that even when I was there in the 90s. But Deborah was one of the first women to really be engaged in really the work that was done in D.C. And, I tell you, there's probably not a more toxic profession on your body, mind, and soul than police work. And but Deborah's going to talk to us about that and how it affected her. So, Deborah, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to, I was on the D.C. Police Department. I came on in 1973 when the courts, in affirmative action, they made them take women, and they were not very happy about it. So I was young, dumb, and thin. I was 22 years old. And one thing that I learned straight off is if I could drink like the boys, I was much more readily accepted. And so drink I did. And I worked in an area of D.C., which was 14th Street Northwest, which had all the ladies of the night. It was certainly an experience because I was born and raised in Bethesda, Maryland, in a white bread suburban house. And I had never seen anything like it in my life. And so I was I had a very violent career. Like Mike said, my book is called Center of Mass. The police district that I worked with was right in the heart of D.C., and as many of you may know, Center of Mass is also a shooting term, a firearms term. When you unfortunately have to shoot out on the street, you're going for Center of Mass, which is the middle of your body. And so that's why I named my book that. But anyway, my sobriety date is October 26, 1986, and I haven't found it necessary to take a drink since then. I married an alcoholic, as many of us do. His name was Frank. He was also a police officer, and I didn't have to do many of the things that I hear about in recovery, about all the games that people play, like hiding the bottles. I've heard people say that they take their, on recycling day, they stick their bottles in their neighbor's recycling cans so that nobody notices. I didn't play any of those games because I was, quote, lucky to be married to an alcoholic, unquote. So the day I put down the drink is the day he stopped drinking too. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, we ultimately divorced, but I don't believe he ever picked up another drink. And so that's a gift. We have a son. Today's his 38th birthday. He's a motorcycle officer in D.C. He was 3 when I came in this program. Like I said, he's 38 today. If I never take another drink, he'll never know me as that drunken mother. In 1986, the summer of 86, he got in the way of my drinking, so I basically gave him away. I chose drinking over my son. I hate sharing that, but that's a part of my story. Drinking will take us down. We all have different events, but it's really basically all the same. Drinking was fun for a while, and then it wasn't fun. And I'm not going back to that way of life. With COVID, everything has changed in recovery. But I've discovered the Zoom meetings, and the Zoom meetings are great. I'm going to Zoom meetings all over the country. I found a great women's meeting in Anchorage, Alaska. And one day I hope to go out there and meet those ladies face to face. I sponsor a lady that I started sponsoring during COVID. We've never met face to face. One day we will. She lives in Southern Virginia. So it's been interesting. It's been an interesting ride. I've always stayed active in recovery. I don't think any of us wakes up and says, gee, I want to be an alcoholic. I'd never heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. Nobody in my family is an addict or alcoholic, which is surprising because it is genetic. I went to rehab in downtown DC. I did the 28 days, got out, and I just thought life is over. What a horrible life it's going to be. But little did I know. The old timers would tell me, don't stop 5 minutes before the miracle happens, and all those corny phrases. But you know what? They were absolutely right. Today I have credibility. I have 2 grandkids. I live down near my son in Southern Virginia, Central Virginia, and they don't spend 1 second worrying about Grammy being drunk. They don't come up to me and smell my breath and go, oh, she's done it again. So I'm not giving that up, and I don't have to. I think we all basically start out on a level playing field, and we can all get this program. The day for excuse is over. We can all find an excuse, right, Mike?
Yeah.
We can always have an excuse, if only usually it's over relationships, but not always. And I like the old corny saying, if you want something, you'll find a way. If you don't want it, you'll find an excuse. And that's absolutely true, So the benefits of this program for anybody that's thinking about it, I guarantee your life will get better. If we keep, and I say if we keep drinking, I guarantee our lives will get worse. There's no doubt about it. So I just like to give hope to people. I say I have long-term sobriety today. I have over 34 years sobriety. If things didn't get better, why would I keep going to AA? It absolutely positively works. Some people talk about, all they do is talk about God. All they do is talk. That's the excuse mode. When I came in these rooms, I went basically to women's meetings, but they seem pretty happy. And it's not that drunken, ha-ha happy. They seem happy, and I wanted that because I hadn't been happy in a long time. And they kept saying, well, we'll see you tomorrow at such and such a meeting. And then the next day I go to a meeting. They go, well, we'll see you next day at another meeting. I was just this dumb, I don't know. I just kept coming back. They talk about keep coming back. It works if you work it. And that's what I did. I got involved. I did service work. I made coffee. I did whatever they told me to do. And here I was, this big badass cop, they told me to stand on my head in a corner so I didn't have to feel that way anymore. I would have done it.
It's true.
I mean, it's true. It's talk about surrender and willingness.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, Deborah, you said that people make excuses about not being able to get the program. And I actually recently was talking to a police officer that desperately needs to be in the program. And this individual said to me, I can't be helped. I'm one of those people that can't be reached. What do you say to that? What do you say to that?
Well, that's an excuse. And, another thing, people talk about how they're too busy. I'm too busy to go to meetings. I'm too busy. I don't think any one of us ever woke up in the morning and said, I'm too busy to drink. And as silly as that sounds, it's true. I mean, we throw everything away, kids, family, dog, whatever, to get that next drink, So if you want it, you go for it. I'm more than willing to go out on a limb for anybody that wants it, but I'm not going to drag you across the finish line. Nobody did for me. A lot of times people will ask me to be their sponsor because they want somebody to kick their ass because they think, she was this big bad cop in D.C. I'm not kicking anybody's ass, Mike. If you want it, I'll be there. But if why would I kick your ass? If you want to do what I do, if you want what we had, you do what we do.
Yeah, that's funny. And I actually run into that with people that I sponsor as well. And I'm not being critical because those that listen to this program that know my story, my sobriety did not come easy. In fact, it was about a 10-year process before I finally put together, 48 hours of not drinking. So I'm not being critical, but I will tell you that when I first started putting together some time, It was not. There was not anybody standing over my shoulder going, "Okay, now, son, go to that meeting over there and don't drink, and we're watching you like a hawk." It didn't work that way until I took complete accountability and complete responsibility for my actions and started actually putting into practice what I was being told. Some of the things that you're talking about, I didn't put any time together, because the bottom line is, if you don't want to get well, there's not a damn thing I can do for you. Now, if you want to get well, I have a lot of tools and resources and advice and direction I can give you. And I can, well, most importantly, express to you what I did to get well. But you got to do the work, right? You've got to do the work.
Yeah, it's kind of like a diet, you know. If you want to lose weight, you got to lose weight. And that's, you know, and I am eating too much over COVID, but whatever. You know, nobody can make you do it. And when I was in the middle of my disease, if then somebody said, "Well, I think you're drinking too much," I mean, how many of us would go, "Oh, thank you. I think you have a point. I think I'll look up AA or whatever."
Thanks, you kids. I didn't know that. I never knew I was drinking too much. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who says that? You have to be ready. I know there's, you know, some people, they talk about you have to hit bottom. And I know there's different, you know, opinions about that. I just know, I guess I hit my bottom. I don't know. I never have ever questioned it. I never thought. I'll just share this. Even though I've been married, oh Lord, even though I've been sober a really long time, if I think about drinking today, I still do not want a drink. I want bottles with an S on the end. So some people will say, "I'm just as sick as I was when I came in." I'm not as sick as I was when I came in, but I'm as alcoholic as I was when I came in.
Good point.
And that's why I still stay in recovery. Also, if of us old timers, if we stop going to meetings, we gotta, you know, carry on. We gotta, you know, we have an obligation to pass on the knowledge that was so freely given to us. And, you know, because I have a lot of information. I may not be the smartest person in the world, but I have a lot of information. And so I pass that on the best I can to other people.
And a lot of experience, yeah.
You know, this program is relatively new, and basically it's only, you know, about 80 some years old. And when I came in, I had been involved when I was still in the police department, I was involved in a fatal shooting in 1986. And I had a grand jury pending, you know, hanging over my head in D.C. Now that's so-called routine because it was a fatality. But in the middle of that, waiting for the grand jury, I decided to get sober. And I got out of rehab after 28 days. I still had a grand jury hanging over my head. And I thought, I'm a dumb alcoholic. I thought if I drank, I'd get in trouble. Now, I don't know who I was going to get. And I'm not talking about the police department, but I just thought the people in AA would be mad at me. So that was one reason I didn't drink, because I didn't want them to be mad at me. You know, it worked temporarily, but the grand jury took 54 weeks to meet, over a year. And I just kept going to meetings daily. I was on administrative leave with pay, and I had to be, this is before cell phones, and I had to be at home from 8 to 4:30 in the event the court called me, and I had to go downtown and testify. So it was it was a tough time. It was a very, very difficult time. And then dumbbell me decided to get sober at that time. You know, we get sober when we're ready. That was, when I look back, I think, why in the world did you pick that time to get sober when you had that thing hanging over your head? But I just did. And, you know, so that's just one event in my story, but I didn't drink over it. You know, people drink over like the death of a family. We've all suffered death. Both my parents have died in sobriety. And, but what's a drink going to accomplish? Nothing. 30 seconds of euphoria and then a huge oh shit moment, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I can't think of any, and I've been to many, many, many meetings. I've never seen anybody come in and share a really, you know, a horrendous problem, and everybody goes, "Well, it's okay. You can drink over that. That's fine." You know,
No.
It's okay. You get a free pass on that. And, you know, and that's very helpful to me because I believe now, like I said, my son is a motor officer in D.C. And I used to think if something happened to him in the line of duty, well, of course I would drink. Anybody would drink. I don't think that anymore at all. I just don't, you know, I can't think of any situation that would justify drinking. Nothing, nada. And I don't need the calories. But I will say also, you know, being the good alcoholic that I am, I'll see something on TV, a new product, I saw something at the Super Bowl, and I won't name it, but it's an alcohol, something new on the market. And I'm thinking, gosh, I'd really like to try that. I just want to try it one time. And then I think, no, you're not trying that. No, or why didn't that come on the market when I was still drinking? And it just shows me I'm still an alcoholic. I have to remember that, there is no more social drinking, whatever that means. What does that mean? One bottle instead of three,
Well, that never happened anyway. I mean, as long as it was there, I was always there.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm very fortunate. My son does not drink at all. And because being that his dad was an alcoholic, the odds are very high that he would be an alcoholic too, the father and son thing. But he doesn't drink at all. And one time I asked him, being the good alcoholic mother, I said, well, why don't you drink? And then I thought, why are you asking him this? And he said, well, I don't want to lose control of my faculties. And I said, well, that's the whole idea. And then I thought, you know what? Shut up. This is not a conversation to have with your son. So, that's fine with me. I don't keep it in the house in case somebody comes over. I don't romanticize drinking. I don't tease the disease, as they say in AA. I don't drink the so-called non-alcoholic beer, which does have a little bit of alcohol in it. I just don't pretend. I don't do it because next thing I know, it's like, well, you could have one, and then one becomes two, and then you're off to the races again.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you mentioned having the genetic predisposition yourself, and clearly your son does as well. And maybe who knows? Maybe that's why another reason why he doesn't drink, because even though he didn't see you drink, and I'm assuming your ex-husband drink, but he's aware that he has that high genetic predisposition. I know that's how my kids are. They are. I never hid this from them. They've mm-hmm. known it, but they were very young when I stopped, but they're aware of it. They're aware of it, and we've taught them. My wife and I both have. But you mentioned the genetic predisposition on your part. Talk to us a little bit about that. What did you mean by that?
Well, I just know it runs rampant through families. And when I went through rehab, they actually had somebody do the family tree. I think I was still toxic when we were talking about it, but I really am one of the few. Oh, I'm so unique. But I mean, there are very few people in my family, my bloodline, that have this disease, and that's very unusual because it runs rampant through families. And I do think about my son, about him making that decision not to drink because of his father's history, but I don't know. I don't spend much time thinking about it. I don't really think that's the reason, because we all know so many people who have alcoholic fathers or parents who say, I will never be like them. And next thing you know, they're exactly like them. So mm-hmm. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't really know. I'm just happy that he doesn't drink. That's fine with me.
Now, did you drink growing up, or did this start after you got into the department?
It started when I was in college, just like a lot of people. As we know, a lot of people go crazy in college drinking, and then they kind of grow up after they graduate. And but I didn't grow up. I think that the police department, and I'm not blaming anybody for anything, but it did add to it because I so badly wanted to be accepted. It was really they so did not want women. It was bad. As a matter of fact, some of the wives of the male officers picketed headquarters downtown. That's how badly they did not want us working with their husbands. So I quickly found that drinking with the boys, so to speak, was kind of an icebreaker. So that kind of contributed. Would I become an alcoholic without any of that? I don't know. I have no idea. I used to think about that. I don't think about it anymore. This program has changed my life so much for the better that I don't care about that. People would say, I'm a grateful alcoholic, and I'd say, get the net for that person. They're certifiably insane. I don't really say I'm glad to be an alcoholic. I just know my life has gotten so much better in recovery. And why would I want to give that up?
Yeah.
I don't.
And I'm the same way. My life has gotten 1,000% better. I would say this, there's certain aspects of my life because, like you just mentioned, you don't want to say that you're glad that you're an alcoholic, but there are, like all things in life. I think one of the things that you learn in recovery is you learn to appreciate things, and you learn that there's an upside, even in negative things, like in COVID. There's negative things that have happened in COVID, certainly, but there's some positive things. Like you mentioned going to meetings that, around the country that you probably wouldn't have gone to if it hadn't been that you were forced to Zoom and forced to change how you do meetings. I know I'm going to meetings over in the United Kingdom right now, which it would not have happened if it hadn't been for COVID, because I just wasn't online, the way that this podcast actually would not have happened had it not been for COVID. But I know that there's things even in my, my personal life, my spiritual development. I know me, and I know that my relationship with my higher power is at a point now that I don't think would have ever happened had it not been for alcoholism and really being forced to explore that side of my life a little bit more. So there are things about it, and I think that that's something in recovery you have to look at is, this is an opportunity to change not just your alcohol, not just drinking, but really just kind of everything, kind of reset your life and your perspective on life. You know what I mean?
Right. And one more that I think is very important is that it's very explicit. These are but suggestions. Nobody's telling you what to do. Now, we suggest highly you probably want to stop drinking or drugging or whatever, but that even is a suggestion. And for alcoholics, we don't like to be told what to do necessarily.
No.
I think that really, that was very helpful to me because they emphasize these are but suggestions. You don't have to believe in a higher power. You don't have to believe in anything. I know many atheists. So we're not shoving anything down your throat. And I really like that. I also like, particularly, in the political climate out there, we don't talk about outside issues at all, because way back in the day with the Washingtonian Society before AA, they had like Republican alcoholics and Democrat, and the whole thing imploded. It doesn't work. And we're very, very explicit. We do not get into outside issues. And that makes it, we feel safer, that works. That's a huge thing. So they are suggestions, and we're not shoving anything down your throat.
And that's funny because that you mentioned that. One of the things when I came into AA, and by the way, neither one of us are plugging AA per se or any other program. I mean, there's a lot of programs out there, and if you're listening to this and you've got a program that's working for you, if it's working for you, God bless you and continue on.
Absolutely.
This just happens to be the program that we're involved in, and I know that when I came into AA, I would hear, it's amazing how I would hear so many people have so many different opinions about it. And then I would go to the meeting and I'd be like, so that's not what I'm seeing. I'm not experiencing what I heard about this. And some of it was, people that are very religious don't think that AA is religious enough. People that aren't religious think that it's too religious. And then there's others where, I didn't want to go in there and listen to this guy's opinion or have this rammed down my throat. And when I went in, just like you were saying, Deborah, I didn't hear any politics. In fact, that's really forbidden to talk about those outside issues, like you mentioned. Yeah. And I have not had anyone force upon me or really pressure me to believe anything other than the one thing that they do say is that you it's highly suggested that you are not your own higher power. Let's put it that way, because you in your opinion, what do they say? Your best thinking got you here. Your best thinking got you here. So let's try another way of thinking. They do talk about that, but then it's not beaten into your head that you have to believe anything in particular other than it's something greater than yourself. And that is true. It is if my plan was working, well, then why was I sitting there in a meeting?
Oh, exactly.
My plan wasn't working so well.
Right. And I feel the power of the group, and that can be defined any way you want. I mean, having tried for years to stop drinking on my own and then, put the drink down, and over 34 years later, I haven't had a drink. That wasn't me. And I don't define it. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I just know it works. And people can define it any way they want, or they can define it, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be defined if you don't want to.
Right. So now, being a police officer, and particularly being in that field during that time, and I can relate to that because my wife and I were both Navy officers, and we became Navy officers around the same time you were in the department in the mid 80s. And I know my wife went through a lot of what you went through, and that, not a lot of men were in the field that she was in those pressures. But having also been a police officer, I just know how particularly a city police officer like you were, very toxic environment. And I'm not talking about men not wanting women in there. I mean, just working the streets, just doing the job. Very, very tough on you mentally, physically, spiritually, all those kinds of things. How much of that do you think contributed to the increase of your drinking? Just the stress of that particular, and the danger of that particular job?
Well, my career was particularly violent, and people have have all kinds of theories about why it was. About 99%, 98% of police officers never fired their gun in their entire career. And, people think, well, yeah, of course they do. I saw Lethal Weapon, and I saw this, and I saw that. Well, they're not going to have a movie about you doing 5 hours of paperwork on an arrest, And I mean, I have yet to ever see a building blow up or a car blow up or all that, whatever. That's movies. But my career was I was involved in 2 fatal shootings. There were dogs. There was a shooting in the cell block. My partner was shot by my sergeant, and my book is called Center of Mass on Amazon. But it's all true. It just was a very, very violent career, and that probably did contribute to it. And also, there were no resources. Post-traumatic stress disorder was not recognized. That was not in those letters were not in the alphabet back in the day. That was not a diagnosis. So back then, the diagnosis was to suck it up, shut up, and people used to congratulate me and welcome me to the club. And I would say, "What club? What are you talking about?" They said, "Well, you were involved in a fatal shooting. Now you're in the club." Well, I didn't want to be in the club, and I still don't want to be in the club, but so there were no resources. There was nothing. And so I also get asked, aren't you bitter but how can you be bitter because it wasn't there? People did the best they could. They didn't know. So now the resources are there now. When there's a shooting, they have counselors. They have all kinds of things that are offered. With back then, they had a full bar at the homicide division to loosen you up, relax you. Well, I think that bar is long gone.
Yeah, and there was the I remember the FOP too. I don't know if that's still there, but that was a big drinking spot.
Well, that was my second home. Yeah. So, yeah, that's still there. But and no, I don't drink there anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of professions. People will say, "Oh, I work at such and such job. Oh, that's a big drinking job." I don't know what job is not a drinking job. So. And also, yes, it was very, very violent, very stressful. It was just crazy. Looking back now, I just can't believe how crazy and insane it was, particularly, like I said, the 14th Street corridor, it was solid gridlock with prostitutes and traffic, and it was nuts. And I was an undercover hoe back in the day. It's like, so I look back and sometimes I think, I just can't believe it, really. So it was interesting to say the least. So I wrote a book to document it for no other reason.
Yeah, and I think a lot of police officers can relate. Well, I know they can because I talk to. That's one of the things I do is I talk with a lot of police, not just police officers, but EMTs, firefighters, dispatchers, corrections officers, and those that are out in these jobs and they think that people can't understand what they're going through. Well, there are people like us that have gone through this, and they often feel like they're alone. Particularly these days, law enforcement in general is under such an attack, and the fact is that there are folks that have gone through what you've gone through, and I highly recommend that you read Deborah's book, Center of Mass. Just check that out on Amazon because she will chronicle that. And I will tell you, I'm saying this because I was in the same department that you were in. It was crazy. I think 5 years, maybe 3 years in that department, the Metropolitan Police Department where you were, is more like 15 years somewhere else. It was a lot of experience packed into a very short amount of time, when I was there. And I actually think it was probably worse when you were there, but very, very tough situation. So Deborah, for those that are listening to us right now, and I'm assuming that if you're listening to this program, there's probably a reason why you're listening to this program. Either that yourself or someone you love, someone close to you in your life, is struggling with an issue. What would be your basic suggestion? What would be your pearls of wisdom to anybody listening right now?
My pearls of wisdom, and I know that, you and I, Mike, we talk about AA, and I'm glad you said that. There are other programs out there. So whatever works. I only talk about AA because that's the program that I go to. But I would say we have open meetings and closed meetings in Alcoholics Anonymous. And an open meeting is really for anybody that might want to investigate, recovery. A closed meeting are people that definitively think they have a problem and want to go to a closed, that type of thing. But my suggestion would be look up an open meeting and just check it out. Keep an open mind. Those two words are so important. Keep an open mind. And, people will be welcoming. And if you don't like that meeting or whatever, you can always go to another meeting, just because I promise you, it will get better. It just will. And if you keep it, if you keep the open mind, and if I can give you any little bit of hope, then I hope that I can, because my kids, my grandkids, I have a relationship, and I know a lot of older people, they can't babysit their grandkids or their kids because they're untrustworthy. I have not knocked over a Christmas tree in probably 35 years, and if I knock over one now, I'll be sober when I do. So that's it. Just check out an open meeting or two and keep an open mind. That's all I can say. And
you raise a good point too, because I hear this from people where they go to a meeting and they think, "Oh my gosh, that was crazy," or something was said that they didn't like, or they didn't like the people, whatever, and then they just don't go back again. And I think it's important to understand, like in the D.C. area, just where you and I live, I think there's maybe 300 different meetings, I think, per day. Per day.
Per day, yeah.
Yeah. Per day. And if you don't like one, then just go to another one. And what happens is you got to, because I did early recovery, my first year, sometimes I was going to 3 meetings a day. I was going to at least 1 a day, but sometimes 3 a day. And I won't say that I liked all of them, because I didn't. But what I did do is I would just go to a different one, and eventually you kind of figure out, like, okay, I mesh with this group. I like this. There's just something about it. And today, I have like my routine, and I'm sure, Deborah, you have your routine of meetings that you go to. But I developed that. I mean, it was kind of hit or miss, But I just kept finding different meetings, and it was like, okay, well, these are my people right here, and kept going. So that's the important. Don't judge everything based on one experience.
Yeah, go to several meetings and go a few minutes beforehand. I know it's the scariest thing you ever do. It was scary for me too. Like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? But go a few minutes beforehand. I guarantee you'll be, greeted warmly, and, but give it a try. Go to several, and then
go from there.
Take it from there.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your book. When did you write this?
I wrote the book about 4 years ago, because I'm not getting any younger. And once I started writing, the hardest thing was to just start. But once I started, it wasn't hard. It's a pretty quick read. So it's a very interesting story, not just because it's mine, but it's pretty interesting. And it's not a wham for me story. I'm a victim. That's not what I intend. This is what happened to me, and I got through it. I persevered, and today things are good. They just are. And my mantra is, I don't drink no matter what. That's it. I don't drink. So. And I understand you're working on a video, or not a video, but an audio version of this book. Yeah, I'm recording. I'm doing an audio book. Yeah, right now. And any idea when that will be completed and available? Probably in the next couple months. I'm about 2/3 of the way through. So, and then I got to put it together. But that'll be on Amazon too. So. Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And so give us the name of the book again, and how our listeners can get hold of a copy of that. The name of the book is Center of Mass, and right now it's on Amazon. And Deborah R. Wolf. It's a blue cover with my badge on it, kind of tilted over, because that was the story of my life tilted over. You know, so it's an easy read. It's like I said, I think it's a pretty interesting story. So.
Yeah, I know it is, and I had the fortune to meet you at a meeting via Zoom. Again, that's another upside to COVID, right? Is I don't know that you and I would have actually the meeting that you and I attend where I met you was started as a direct result of COVID, and I went to that, and I will tell you right now, I was not a big online meeting guy. In fact, I was kind of anti-online meeting guy prior to COVID. I'm a big face-to-face person, and but I didn't think any of us thought a year later we'd still be locked up in our homes, and so I was kind of forced into the meeting, and I'm glad I did because I got to meet people like you and others, the great people. You meet some great people in meetings. Yeah. You do. You meet a lot of great people.
That's a good point. The Zoom meetings, I would recommend, and yes, it's not real easy to get used to them, but once I got used to them, they're great. And also, if you're shy, you don't have to show your face. You can be anonymous during the meeting. And, once again, nobody's forcing you to, come out of the closet, so to speak. But check out the Zoom meetings. I would say that same as the in-person. Just give it a try. We got nothing to lose. I'd love to say there's no sign on the wall that says you have to drink such and such amount of alcohol to be an alcoholic.
No.
The thing is, if you think you have a problem, you probably do, because social drinkers, whatever that means, they don't spend half a second thinking about alcohol. They can take it or leave it.
No, it's funny that you mentioned that, Deborah, because I've actually said that in a previous podcast, and that is, just ask yourself this question. Do people that don't have a problem even ask the question? I mean...
No, of course not. No, they don't.
Why would you ask yourself that question?
Yeah, they're the ones who leave have the ice cubes melting that good scotch or whatever the hell it is,
Yeah.
So, they don't spend half a second thinking about alcohol. And that's my sister. She's my measuring stick. And there's times I'll say, would you finish that damn drink? What is wrong with you? Then I think, oh, stop.
It's called alcohol abuse.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And there was just one more thing. There was an old timer when I came in. She would get home from work, get the bottle, and drink right from the bottle. She said, I would have used a glass, but I didn't have the time. And I thought, I relate to that. I would have used a glass, but I never forgot her. Yeah, I would have used a glass, but I didn't have the time. Okay,
or you're in a restaurant and you kind of know, being cops, we always notice who's around us, right? And I would see, a couple next to us drinking beer or a glass of wine, and the couple would drink maybe half the glass or leave a little bit, and then they would get up and they would leave, and it just would bother me. I'd be like, can you believe that guy over there that guy didn't finish that glass of wine? Who does that? Well, I think the proper question is who thinks about stuff like that.
Yeah, I still think that. Yeah, I do, and then I laugh at myself. Nothing was funny coming into recovery, but now I can laugh about it. Like, why are you looking at that man's glass? He didn't want to finish it. It's okay. We're all going to be okay. The man didn't finish his drink.
But we think that way. We think that way.
We do, and that's why we don't graduate from this, and that's fine. I don't care. I'm good.
Yeah.
If I never take another drink, I'm good. It's fine.
Well, Deborah, thank you so much for joining us today, and what a pleasure. And again, check out Deborah's book, Center of Mass, on Amazon, and look forward to the audio version, because I know a lot of you folks out there don't read books anymore. There's a lot of people that do that. And, well, that's okay, because now you are going to be able to listen to the book, and that's fantastic.
Thank you.
So, as always, I like to say we don't represent any group. So we have been talking about AA quite a bit here, but as we mentioned, get help wherever you can. If it works for you, by God, just keep doing it, because if it works, it works. Then keep working it. So we don't represent anyone other than ourselves, and our only purpose in giving this information is to share with you what we've done, because it has helped us, and maybe it will help you too. So if we've said anything that does not apply to you, or you don't agree with, then just discard it. But try to take something that we were talking about that you can use for yourself, and then use that to help others as well. That's what we do in recovery. We help ourselves along the way, and we help impart our knowledge to help others. And so with that, please visit our Facebook page, Recovery is Possible, and our website, which is vanmeterwellnesssolutions.com. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if there's a topic that you're interested in hearing or someone that you'd like me to talk to, because I'd love to hear from you. So take care, and we'll see you next time.